It is the ultimate stylistic collision of modern cinematic athleticism and traditional bone-breaking dominance. What happens when the high-flying, gravity-defying kicks of Scott Adkins meet the cold, brutal, momentum-crushing Aikido of prime Steven Seagal? It is the unstoppable aerial force against the immovable object. The warehouse doors are locked. Let the simulation begin. Before he became the undisputed king of modern underground combat cinema, Scott Adkins came from a long line of butchers in Sutton Coldfield, England. But instead of carving meat, he decided to carve a legacy in martial arts. Obsessed with Bruce Lee and Jean-Claude Van Damme from a young age, Adkins turned his father's garage into a makeshift dojo. He trained relentlessly, earning black belts in judo and taekwondo before expanding his vast arsenal to include kickboxing, wushu, krav maga, and extreme gymnastics. Adkins is not just an actor playing a fighter. He is a legitimate elite martial artist who brought acrobatic tricking and the iconic Guyver kick into mainstream combat sports culture. His style is a hybrid of explosive power, impossible aerial strikes, and raw, bare-knuckle grit. He represents the modern era of mixed martial arts athleticism, a perfectly engineered human weapon capable of striking from angles that defy physics, moving with a speed and ferocity that overwhelms anyone in his path. On the completely opposite end of the combat spectrum is a man whose early life reads like a mysterious martial arts novel. Incredibly, Steven Seagal is the first foreigner in the history of Japan to open and operate an Aikido dojo. Born in Michigan, Seagal moved to Japan in his late teens, fully immersing himself in Eastern culture. He earned a prestigious 7th Dan black belt in Aikido, a martial art fundamentally designed to use an attacker's energy against them through devastating throws and joint locks. Before his massive Hollywood fame, Steven Seagal was a legitimate, highly respected instructor in Osaka. His combat style is characterized by minimal movement, supreme structural control, and ruthless efficiency. He does not bounce around the ring or throw flashy kicks. He waits, he intercepts, and he breaks. His entire philosophy revolves around entering the opponent's space, neutralizing their balance, and delivering bone-snapping joint manipulations and brutal open-hand strikes. He is a master of painful, instantaneous deflections. If the greatest martial arts minds gathered to analyze this stylistic nightmare, the room would be fiercely split on the outcome of gravity versus grounding. Joe Rogan would marvel at the pure athleticism. Scott Adkins is a freak of nature. He throws 550-degree kicks like they are standard jabs. If he lands one clean spinning hook kick, it is lights out for Seagal. But Seagal is a massive guy with vicious joint locks. If he catches that kicking leg, Adkins is going home in a cast. Legendary martial artist Chuck Norris would focus on the distance management. Scott has the youth and the speed. He needs to fight like a sniper. Seagal wants you to rush him so he can use your forward momentum. Scott must not engage in a grappling contest. Finally, Jean-Claude Van Damme would weigh in on the psychological warfare. Scott is explosive, a true athlete, but Seagal fights with a cold, almost arrogant calmness. In a real street fight, that ice-cold Aikido precision can instantly dismantle a high-flying kicker. To prepare for a structural powerhouse like Steven Seagal, Scott Adkins would put himself through an agonizing modern mixed martial arts training camp. His regimen would focus heavily on cardiovascular supremacy and fast-twitch muscle conditioning. He would spend hours hitting the heavy bag with relentless combinations, ensuring his boxing and kickboxing were razor-sharp. Adkins would drill his signature aerial maneuvers, the tornado kicks and spinning back kicks, not just for show, but to perfect their lethal kinetic impact. Knowing Seagal's mastery of joint locks, Adkins would intensely train in submission defense and wrestling scrambles, focusing on how to pull out of the clinch and break grips instantly. He would utilize intense plyometrics to maximize his explosive jumping power, preparing to attack Seagal from heights and angles the traditional Aikido master is simply not accustomed to defending against. His absolute goal is to be a relentless, untouchable blur of violent motion, never staying in one place long enough to be grabbed. Steven Seagal's preparation for a dynamic striker like Adkins would be completely devoid of modern gym equipment, relying entirely on traditional, stoic discipline. He would retreat to a quiet, secluded dojo, focusing on deep breathing, centering his chi, and maintaining absolute psychological stillness. Seagal would drill thousands of repetitions of Aikido deflections, parries, and wrist grabs, training his hands to automatically react to incoming strikes without conscious thought. He would extensively practice randori, defending against multiple attackers simultaneously to perfect his spatial awareness and footwork, ensuring he is never caught off balance. Seagal would also deeply condition his forearms and hands, striking wooden surfaces to harden his bones for his signature debilitating slaps and chops. His preparation is not about building stamina to outwork Adkins. It is about sharpening his timing to a razor's edge, knowing he only needs Adkins to make one aggressive mistake to snap a limb and end the fight instantly. Analysis. This matchup is the ultimate clash of the unstoppable force meeting the immovable object. Physically, Scott Adkins is a specimen of modern sports science. He is incredibly muscular, highly agile, and possesses the stamina to fight at a blistering pace for extended periods. He operates from the outside, utilizing a vast arsenal of long-range kicks and leaping strikes. Steven Seagal, in his prime, is a towering figure at 6'4", holding a significant height and weight advantage over Adkins. Seagal is not a dancer, he is a brick wall. His entire system is built on fighting in the pocket, gripping the opponent, and destroying their structural integrity. Mentally, Adkins fights with aggressive, explosive passion, while Seagal fights with a cold, detached, almost dismissive arrogance. The analysis is clear. If Adkins can stay on the outside and batter Seagal with heavy leg kicks and quick boxing combos, he wins. But if Adkins launches into the air or gets too close, Seagal's devastating Aikido will turn Adkins' own momentum into a catastrophic injury. Arena and fighting rules. To properly test this clash of modern acrobatics and traditional bone breaking, the simulation takes place inside an abandoned, dimly lit industrial warehouse. The raw concrete floor is unforgiving, surrounded by rusted steel pillars and scattered wooden shipping crates. There are no ropes, no mats, and absolutely no referee to stop the violence. It is a pure, unsanctioned street fight. Striking, kicking, throws, joint locks, and using the environment are completely legal. The bout continues until one man is either knocked unconscious or physically incapable of continuing. This gritty, realistic environment perfectly sets the stage to see if Adkins' cinematic athleticism can survive the brutal, street-lethal reality of Steven Seagal's Aikido. The heavy metal doors of the warehouse slam shut, echoing through the cold, damp space. Scott Adkins stands bouncing lightly on the balls of his feet, wearing dark combat trousers and taped hands, his guard high in a crisp, aggressive kickboxing stance. Across from him, Steven Seagal stands perfectly still in his traditional flowing black Aikido gi. his hands lowered and relaxed, his face showing absolute, cold indifference. Adkins strikes first. Exploding forward, he unleashes a blistering combination, a stiff left jab, a right cross, followed by a thunderous low kick aimed at Seagal's lead leg. Seagal barely moves. He casually swats the punches away with open palms and simply shifts his weight, causing Adkins' heavy kick to glance harmlessly off his shin. Frustrated by the lack of reaction, Adkins turns up the pace. He utilizes the shipping crates, running up the side of a wooden box to launch a devastating, gravity-defying flying knee directly at Seagal's head. This is the exact moment the Aikido master was waiting for. As Adkins hurtles through the air, Seagal sidesteps with microscopic precision. He extends his right hand, catching Adkins midair by the collar, and uses Adkins' own massive flying momentum to violently redirect him. Seagal slams the high-flying martial artist back first onto the unforgiving concrete floor with earth-shattering force. The impact momentarily stuns Adkins, but his combat instincts kick in. He immediately scrambles to his feet, throwing a desperate spinning back fist. Seagal is already there. With terrifying fluidity, Seagal intercepts the spinning arm, sliding his hand down to trap Adkins' wrist. In one seamless, brutal motion, Seagal pivots his hips, hyperextending Adkins' elbow, and applies a catastrophic, bone-snapping Aikido lock. A sickening crack echoes through the warehouse. Adkins cries out in agony, his right arm rendered completely useless, dropping him to his knees. Before he can even attempt to defend with his remaining arm, Seagal delivers a swift, merciless, open-hand palm strike directly to the bridge of Adkins' nose. The explosive force snaps Adkins' head back, sending the modern athletic marvel crashing to the concrete, entirely incapacitated. The dark industrial warehouse falls dead silent, save for the rhythmic dripping of a leaky pipe. Steven Seagal does not celebrate. He does not even look winded. He calmly adjusts his black gi, runs a hand through his slicked back hair, and turns his back on his fallen opponent, walking away into the shadows with supreme, untouchable arrogance. In this brutal street fight simulation, Steven Seagal's mastery of Aikido, timing, and structural manipulation proved fatal for the high-flying acrobatics of Scott Adkins. While Adkins showcased unbelievable speed and offensive power, Seagal demonstrated the core, terrifying truth of traditional Aikido. The harder you attack, the harder you fall. By remaining perfectly calm, maintaining his center, and flawlessly weaponizing Adkins' own aggressive momentum, Steven Seagal proved that in a gritty, real-world scenario, the immovable object will absolutely shatter the unstoppable force. What a shocking, bone-breaking conclusion here on Legacy Untold TV. Let us know in the comments, do you agree with this simulation, or do you firmly believe Scott Adkins' modern MMA striking would have knocked the Aikido master out cold before he could ever grab a wrist? If you loved this brutal fantasy matchup, make sure to hit that subscribe button and leave a like. Next up, we are bringing the godfather of mixed martial arts back to the arena as the legendary Bruce Lee squares off against the massive, explosive power of Michael Jai White. You won't want to miss it. Stay legendary.